Hi, it's the Sons of Libertas again, and we're here at the European Students for Liberty Conference 2015 in Berlin, and we're here with Aaron Koenig. Aaron Koenig is Managing Director of the film productions company Bitfilm and CEO and co-founder of the startup Amico. And well, you have you did some lecture on how Bitcoin can achieve a freer society here.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. How would you explain Bitcoin to someone who hasn't heard about it in the first place? Like, what is Bitcoin?
Well, it's two things. It's a new form of money. It's kind of a digital form of gold in a way, because it has all the qualities that makes gold good money. You know, it's scarce, it's fungible, it's impossible to counterfeit. So it has many qualities that qualifies to be good money, voluntary money, free market money. And at the same time, it's a worldwide payment system that works in no time and for hardly any costs. You can compare it to sending an email. It's just as cheap and just as fast. And that, of course, is a big advantage compared to gold. So it's these two things. And then on top of that, I mean, that's Bitcoin, the money and payment system. But the underlying technology that makes Bitcoin so exciting, which is called the blockchain, which is a distributed database, so to speak, a distributed ledger that's not on one central computer, but it's distributed on many computers. And that makes many things possible that now would need some kind of central authority. Imagine land deeds, imagine whatever, weddings, all kinds of things where now we think we need a government to, you know, to handle these legislation things. With the blockchain technology, all that can be done on the free market voluntarily.
So how does this blockchain thing work? What do I even have to understand about how it's working?
As a user, you really don't have to understand that much. You need to know that there are many computers all over the world that work together. And as people just contribute this computing power to the network, they get rewarded by the new Bitcoins that come into existence. But actually, you don't need to know about anything about cryptography and the algorithm and all that. I mean, if you're a programmer and if you want to work on that, of course you need to know. But as a user, you know, it's just like email. You don't need to know the SMTP protocol or packet switching, all these very complicated things that make email work. You just click send and send an email. Bitcoin is really as easy as that for the user.
Okay, so, well, when I think about Bitcoin, the first thing I think about is
buying drugs. No.
Why should I buy Bitcoin in the first place? I mean, it's just some numbers in a computer, isn't it?
Well, just like most of money today. I mean, most of the money is money on your bank account, which is just numbers on a computer. It's not, you know, that's not so different. But well, there are many advantages for Bitcoin. First of all, you can send it around the world for hardly any fees. Imagine if you now want to pay somebody in India or the United States, you pay a lot of money just for sending that money through the banking system. Not inside Europe. Okay, in Europe, we're well off. But we, for instance, we have many freelancers that work for us, for our film production, in India, in Latin America, in the US. And of course we pay them with Bitcoin. It's fast, it's cheap, it's easy, you can do it over the weekend, there are no closing hours, and there's no way of stopping this. Yeah? Imagine that we, for instance, work with somebody in China and the Chinese government doesn't like that. We don't care, we can pay him anyway. Yeah? There's no way to stop Bitcoin by any central authority, by any government, by any dictatorship or so. Which is great.
So maybe some more advanced question. You're doing very much on Austrian economics. I think in your new book you're trying to explain the emergence of Bitcoin through Austrian economics.
I try to explain in very simple words. It's not a book for economists or, you know, it's a book for very normal people who want to know how Bitcoin works, what it is. And of course I explain why is Bitcoin good money. So I do take the Austrian theory of money, and I do compare it to gold and all the qualities. So I try to make that connection, and I especially explain why the current monetary system that we have is bad and damaging, because most people don't know. They think, yeah, what's so special about Bitcoin? Yeah? And the real reason is there is no state. You know, you don't need a state, you don't need a central bank, you don't need banks at all. So it's a big revolutionary step towards a freer society, I think.
Well, what does the state do wrong with their money?
Well, the state has a monopoly on money. Monopolies are always bad, and the state does abuse that monopoly. I mean, debts are rising, and there's inflation, and maybe there's a hidden inflation. Maybe you don't see it in everyday, the everyday's prices, but of course that's due to the increased productivity. Those prices actually should go down, but you can see it in real estate. You can see it in stocks. I mean, there is a heavy inflation going on, and the state robs normal people's money by that trick. Yeah? So this is a really bad thing, and it actually makes the rich richer and the poor poorer through this so-called Cantillon effect. You
How
might
does
have
that
heard.
work? Could you explain it any further?
Well, if you're very close to the source where the money comes, if you work for the government or if you work for the bank, then you get the money early. But of course, the normal people, you know, the people who get salaries or, you know, pensions, they get it later when the price already have gone up. So it's a very unfair process, and you can see it since '71, when that fiat money system really came like 100% into existence. I mean, the gap has become so much bigger. And it's not because of capitalism, quite the opposite. It's because of the monopoly of the state on money. And most people don't know. I mean, libertarians know, probably our viewers of Sons of Liberty know it, but normal people don't. And the good thing about Bitcoin is many people are fascinated by Bitcoin because of the technology, and it's easy to use, kind of cool. And then they start thinking about what is money actually, and what's the monetary system. And when they see, okay, banks can just create money out of thin air, and then they even get interest rates on it, and the central bank can just create billions and billions of new euros. I mean, it's crazy. It's such a crazy system, but we just don't think about it. And I think Bitcoin helps people think, because this question, of course, comes: what's Bitcoin? What is Bitcoin? What's better with it? What's wrong with the old system? And what I really like is it will be very hard to fight against the old system, because there's so much, you know, so many vested interests. It will be very hard to fight against it. So but the better thing is to just invent a new system, use it, and make the old system obsolete. And this is what will happen.
Okay, but if you think about it, I understand your point. Like, if you got a choice which money to choose from, you think about the advantages and disadvantages. Bitcoin also has inflation, doesn't it?
Well, in the original sense of the word, yes, of course. I mean, there's continually there's this growing supply of Bitcoins. Like every 10 minutes, new Bitcoins come into existence. Like at the moment 25, in a few months there will be only 12.5 new Bitcoins. So yes, the money supply grows. So in the literal meaning of inflation, yes, it inflates. But at the same time, I mean, in the last years, we have seen an immense growth in the Bitcoin price has gone up a lot. In the last months, it got down a bit. But if you compare the Bitcoin price now, which is about 225 euros, you know, it was in the end of 2011 was 2 euros. So it's grown like more than 100 times. And so, of course, the prices have gone down. If you sold something 3 years ago for Bitcoin, you would charge 1 Bitcoin, and now you may charge 0.01. So in that kind of popular way of using that term, inflation, meaning that the price goes, you can see that the prices drop. But of course, the real meaning, and that the money supply grows, there is some kind of Bitcoin inflation, but it's not a problem. I think the money supply of Bitcoin definitely grows not as fast as the amount of goods and services in the economy. I mean, it's still a very small market capital on Bitcoin, and the absolute number of Bitcoin is limited by the software. I mean, with gold, it's also kind of limited. There's a limited amount of gold on this planet, but you never know. I mean, some asteroid can come which is made of gold, and then we have plenty of gold. With Bitcoin, that would be impossible. There are 21 million Bitcoins, and never more.
Okay, so you view the price deflation as a positive thing?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that deflation is a bad thing is a myth. I mean, first of all, deflation means that the money supply shrinks. That's deflation. Yeah, I mean, from But most people or even some economists say if prices go down, this is bad. But what's bad about prices? It just means that you can afford more. And this myth that people will stop buying stuff because they will always wait for low price. And you see it in in the electronics industry. I mean, everybody knows that the computer that you buy now, in 2 years it will be worthless. You can never, and you would just get the same computer for a fraction of the price.
And you still buy it.
And you still buy it because you need it, yeah? So this myth that deflation is bad, I mean, I think there was a good book by Philip Bagos about it, that it's simply just wrong, and governments misuse that.
Atoplismophobia?
I don't know, sorry. But I mean, there's an interest of governments, they want to have inflation because it's good for them, so they tell us that lie that deflation is bad, which is, of course, not true.
Okay. So, if I think about buying Bitcoin, where should I buy it? Or
well, there are plenty of ways. There are many exchanges. You can just go to somebody who owns Bitcoin, who trades Bitcoin. That's probably a very anonymous way. I mean, we organize a monthly event where people can go together. We can buy and sell Bitcoin. It's not so much about the trading. It's more like people get an experience of it and they can ask questions. I mean, that would be one way. Or you can work for Bitcoin. I mean, that's probably the best thing. I mean, you just offer what you have to offer and then you get paid in Bitcoin. I mean, I hardly ever buy Bitcoins. I just, offer some service for Bitcoin, and that works fine.
Okay, except for your services, what else can you purchase with Bitcoin right now?
A lot. I think at this moment there are about 100,000 online shops, and that number is growing rapidly. And it's also the big ones. So it's like Overstock and Dell, Microsoft, Rakuten. You can donate money to Rand Paul if you're in America. So there are more and more. I think even PayPal now allows merchants to accept Bitcoin. Right? Edeka, you can buy food with Bitcoin. There's takeaway.com, so you can order whatever, pizza, Chinese food. So it's getting more and more practical. I mean, it's still in its infancy. You can really compare Bitcoin now to the internet in the early 90s. I mean, that's where we are, very much at the beginning. But also a lot of venture capital has been invested in Bitcoin in the last year. So this is really taking off. More and more companies work on it, on making Bitcoin more easy to use, more user-friendly. More and more services come up with it, both the money Bitcoin, but also the blockchain technology where you can do other things, like whatever, registering land or flats or things like that, and identity. So many people work on making governments obsolete and banks obsolete, which is great.
What does your Bitcoin startup actually do?
Well, we will use Bitcoin technology to disrupt the world of loyalty programs. So all these miles and more and kinds of stuff. So we will offer the same level of sophistication that now only the big companies can afford to a small company around the corner. And that is possible because Bitcoin technology makes these things so much faster and cheaper and all that. We're still working on that, so it's a bit early to talk about in detail, but that's about one of the topics,
But your book is coming out like this spring?
11th of May, at Finanzbuchverlag, and Frank Schäffler has written the preface for it. In Germany it's quite well known, I think. It's a good publishing house, I think, and there seems to be lots of interest in the community and the press. So, and I hope it will be easy for people to read and to understand. I really try to make it not very technical, and even if I try to also explain the principle of Austrian economics in a very, very simple fashion for beginners.
If you get from it at an Austrian monetary view, like some Mengerian thoughts about how money can emerge on the free market, or Mises' regression theorem, Bitcoin isn't really based on anything that has value except for its monetary value, does it?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, if you use the regression theorem of Mises, and if you think, I mean, Bitcoin would of course never have existed just from the start. But if you see, I mean, if you apply the regression theorem by Mises to Bitcoin, I mean, it works like that. I mean, people are willing to exchange their euros and dollars to Bitcoin. And why do euros and dollars have a value still? Because they were backed by gold in the early days. And why does gold have a value? So when you go back that circle or that chain, I mean, the reason why Bitcoin has a value because people use it, people want it, people pay their old trash cash to get Bitcoins. So you can, of course, there was nothing before. I mean, of course, Bitcoin had no practical value before. That's true, but it's not necessary for applying the regression theorem.
Yeah. So if you track it back, we have to thank anti-government activists and like technology amazed people who just bought Bitcoin out of fun. That this
or created Bitcoin
start.
out of fun. In the beginning, most people just mined it. I mean, that's the process. I mean, you can, in the old days, every computer could just mine Bitcoins. Now the level has gone up a lot, so you really need expensive hardware that's specialized on creating new Bitcoins. But actually what these computers do, they check if the transaction worked correct. So what in the old days banks had to do with their data centers, now all these miners do in a decentralized fashion. And as they wouldn't do it just for fun, I mean, they spend electricity and have to buy the computers, so they get rewarded by the new Bitcoins that come into existence. It's kind of a lottery, but the chances are much higher if you put in a lot of computing power. So it's a kind of race always between but it's a very clever system how that works. And yes, I mean, we have to be thankful to Satoshi Nakamoto, that mythical founder and inventor. Nobody knows who he is. Maybe it's a group of people. Nobody. But actually, also, he didn't invent that much because many things. Many things he just took. I mean, the cryptographic algorithms, they were there already. Many things. I mean, there was digital cash before. There was e-cash. All these things. The whole thing about cryptography, he just took what was there and what worked. And the big innovation is actually the blockchain. Because in the old days, I mean, you could have anonymous money and cryptographic cash. That was possible. The big problem was always the so-called double spending problem. Because digital goods
simply copy it, right?
Yes, theoretically yes. And in the digital world, a copy is as good as the original. And for file sharing, for music, that's practical. For money, it would be not so practical. So in the old days, of course, you had to have some kind of central server that checked, okay, this money will be subtracted from my account and added to your account, and that was a need for that central authority. And Satoshi wanted to get rid of that because he saw that as a big problem, because he had to trust that authority, that company, whatever, and he wanted to have a trustless system where you would only need to trust in the laws of mathematics, and they cannot be changed even if the government comes with lots of guns and policemen. 2 plus 2 is always 4. So the big invention is this decentralized network of computers. So this peer-to-peer network. And so in a way, Satoshi also learned a lot from BitTorrent and the likes of peer-to-peer. So yeah, I mean, Satoshi also stood on the shoulder of giants. Yeah? And so we can be thankful to the inventors of the internet and to the inventors of cryptography and all that. And I think it's a huge leap for mankind, so to speak. Yeah? It's really, I'm really very assured that this invention can lead to a more decentralized way of working together, and so to a freer society.
Yeah. So what makes the great leap exactly? How does Bitcoin make us freer?
Bitcoin takes away power from the state. The state can no longer confiscate money, stop transactions, freeze accounts. It's no longer possible. You can't just exchange money over borders. You can send money to some dissident in Iran, whatever, and nobody can stop you. And that's a big innovation. And you don't have to ask permission to anybody. You don't need to get your passport details and all that to open a bank account. You just do it. It's really person-to-person interaction. And transferring value is a very important thing. And you can even send a very small amount. If you like somebody's blog who is in Peru, and you just send them €0.50. I mean, it would have been impossible in the old system because the fees would be much higher, so you wouldn't do it. Now you can do it. So I think billions of people around the world, especially in developing countries, which didn't have a bank account, let alone a credit card, they can now be part of the global economy. That means more free trade, more innovation, more people taking part, trading with each other. So
bigger market. So.
Absolutely, yeah. More freedom. Oh. That's what it's all about.
Okay. Thank you for the interview.
No, thank you for the good questions.
Yeah. So thank you. We'll meet again.
Hopefully. Okay.
Good, super.
Bye-bye.
Sehr gut.
Giga Tea, crowdfunding for you and me.